Hello, everybody. This is Dr. E back. Today, I'm going to talk to you about discernment for healthy or unhealthy foods. Again, discernment for healthy or unhealthy foods. Our Creator, our loving Father, if there's anything that I've noticed in my years of walking with Him that He wants us to become, that is, He wants us to be wise. The Bible talks about wisdom being that thing that judges judge by, rulers rule by, organizations operate by. And if we're going to be successful health-wise, as well as relationships, financially, and so forth and so on, we've got to be wise. That means I've got to get information and get understanding about that information and right utilization of that information. We've got to be wise. One of the most powerful books in the Bible is the book of Proverbs, written predominantly by Solomon, considered to be the wisest man who ever lived. All right? When it comes down to health and wellness and what we ingest, we've got to be wise. We've got to be able to discern what is good and what is not good. We've got to be able to discern the real from the fake, because guess what? You only get one body, until the resurrection for the new bodies, of course. But right now, as things are, you only have one body. So you want to put the best that you can in this priceless vehicle. Now, there are certain automobiles and trucks, sure, and planes and other means of travel that you've got to put the right stuff in it in order for it to operate correctly. So it is with the human body. I want to ask you a question. Of course, I'm not going to be able to hear you answer, but you can answer it on your own. What are you eating on a regular basis? Now, let me put this out there so that you won't think I'm teaching something that's lopsided. Good health does not hinge just on what you eat. Now, it is a major part of the pie. Don't get me wrong about that now. It is important what you put in physically into this priceless vehicle. But it's not the only thing. There are some other major factors or cornerstones of good health, like sleep and rest, exercise, relationships. Oh, we're going to talk about how relationships affect our health as well. But back to the food issue. Is it real or is it fake? What are you eating? We need discernment for what we are going and picking up off the shelves, putting in our baskets, bringing home, and consuming on a regular basis. Like what we've all no doubt heard for years, you are and I am what we eat. You are and I am what we eat. Or even further said, what the body is able to assimilate. So is it real or is it fake? We need discernment. This show is all about helping us discern, distinguish the difference, determine what is real and what is fake. Because guess what? There's a lot of fake out there. Well, let me tell you what the real is like. The real is that our loving Father, Creator, Architect, Designer, what God Almighty created. Hear that again. The real is what He created and told us to eat. We're eating things that He didn't tell us to eat. So the real starts with the one who made the items for the human body. All right? We've got to settle that. God so loved us that He told us what to eat. But even a lot of Christians, a lot of believers don't believe God when it comes down to that food side. We'll believe God for salvation and miracles and healings. But then we oftentimes diss God's instructions, His wisdom about what to eat. We don't want to hear Him in that area. Oh, no. Oh, salvation, yes, because I want to go to heaven. But if you don't learn to eat what God said to eat, you may end up getting to heaven a little bit sooner than what you expected. You see, He told us, all right, first of all, healthy eating or eating the real stuff begins with taking His advice because Daddy knows best. All right? Then second of all, it has to do with what He said to eat and what He said not to eat, particularly over there in that animal seafood world, and even some in the vegetable world too, I would perceive. But let's stick with the animal seafood world. There were certain animals God said, not Calvin Ellison or any other person who operates in this health and wellness space, is what the Creator said. He told us which animals were good to eat. Leviticus chapter 11 and Deuteronomy, forgot which chapter in Deuteronomy, but you could look it up. He said what to eat of those animals and what not to eat of those animals. Well, if He said not to eat a certain category, evidently He knew, because He created them, that they would not function well in the human body. They would not give us the health, the vitality, the energy, and all of these other things that we would need for healthy living. Don't forget what He said. In 3 John, verse 2, God expressed His passion concerning our well-being. He said, through John, tell my people, I wish above all things that they prosper and be in good health, even as or to the degree that the soul prospers. So in other words, we could say it like this. You're going to only be as healthy as what you know and what you understand and properly apply, which is wisdom. Excuse me. Wisdom is the proper application of the information or the knowledge that we gain. No knowledge, no wisdom. Oh my God. I'm going to say that again. To be ignorant of the laws that govern health, of the kind of foods that God said to eat and not to eat, can and will and is leading to physical problems that could be avoided. If we would just stop being so hard-headed when it comes down to what God said, not Calvin Ellison, but what God said. I didn't say it. I didn't say don't eat the pig. He did. Don't blame me. Don't criticize me. He's the one who said it. Now I used to eat the pig too. I used to gnaw on his tail. I used to bite on his ears. It was like some crazy love affair with the pig. Gnawing on his tail, chewing on his ears, devouring his intestinal tract. Oh my God, now he's not the only one that God said don't eat. Now there's some other ones out there over on the seafood side, the shrimp and the lobsters. Oh my God, I know this is painful to some of you all. I know it is. It was painful to me when I found out about it. When I began to dig into the word and dig into scientific information that backed up God's word, man, I was going through some emotional trauma as well because I had been hooked on this stuff for years that God said don't eat. And I was hooked. I'm laughing because I know what some of you are going through. I know what I went through when you hear stuff like this. Oh my God, when I heard it about 40 years ago or more about the sugar, you talk about a brother man tripping. Because if there's anything that Calvin Ellison was hooked on, it was sugar, sugar, sugar. Just like some of you right now. But don't worry, there's hope. I'm here to help you because I got help from God and, of course, through other folks from God to help me break the sugar addiction. And I can report to you today, I'm no longer under bondage to sugar. Do I still eat sweet stuff? Yes. But it's not made out of that sugar when I'm eating some of these items like the sugar I used to be hooked on, addicted to, craved, had to have, about to trip out if I didn't get it, like some of you. But there's hope, as there was hope for me of deliverance. Now, we talk about deliverance in our church services. We need some deliverance from some of these items that God did not recommend. So, we're talking about, is it real or fake? Discernment for choosing healthy or unhealthy foods. You see, we've got to be able to tell the difference. All right? So we can make informed decisions. So there are two categories. The real, again, as our loving Father told us what to eat, stuff that comes out of the ground, stuff that is raised naturally. Fish do not eat corn in the ocean because corn doesn't grow in the ocean. Neither does wheat or soy. So where do we find fish eating corn, wheat, and soy? Where do we find that from? Because I've never heard of corn or wheat or soy growing in the ocean. Well, these are fish that are farm-raised fish that are fed genetically engineered corn, wheat, and soy. That's not natural. All right? So whole foods or real foods are foods that were raised the way God said to raise them. They are the foods that God said to eat, and he told us what to eat. It's in his manual. It's in the Bible. All right? So foods that God said to eat, or the ones he said to eat, because there are some ones, as I mentioned, that he said not to eat. So foods also that were raised the way God told us to raise them. Okay? When it comes down to the plant life. Of course, the animal life, they would eat what the Creator recommended. You know, the stuff that was out there in nature. You've never heard of a lion going and eating a store-bought can of deer. All right. No, those guys, they know to go after natural stuff. I believe that they intelligently, intuitively know that if I go and eat all of this stuff that's in a box, a can, or a package, they know it's going to take away from their kingship. I believe that they know their testosterone levels are going to go down. I believe that they know their ability to reproduce cubs is not going to be there as it was. This is why you've never seen a bunch of animals going up to our average supermarket requesting food. Or you've never heard of elephants or giraffes going to fast food convenience stores. We do that. But what are we eating when we go there? Now let's go to the other side. We talked about what the real looks like so we could have discernment. Now let's talk about the unreal. In the unreal category, or the deceptive side or deceptive category, we could umbrella these foods with the word frankenfoods. Now, I know many of us, no doubt, remember Frankenstein. Frankenstein was a being that man made. There are foods that have been categorized as frankenfoods, man-made foods. And we rush off to the stores to get those foods. Why? Because they look good, appeal to the eye. They taste good, appealing to the taste buds. And they give us a temporary high. Oh, I feel good that I ate it. But how do you feel a few hours later, a few days later, a few months later, a few years later, after you've been consuming this stuff on a consistent, regular basis? See, more than likely, you're not going to feel bad after you've eaten some of these frankenfoods. More than likely, it's not going to show up, excuse me, in 30 minutes of the effects of it. But give it some time. Why? Because there's a law out there. You are going to reap what you sow. So therefore, I'm convinced, man, we better be praying like what we never prayed before, because eating some of this stuff and what they will do in the body, from causing addictions to causing weight gain to causing inflammation, throwing the body's balance off, and a whole array of issues that come from us consuming on a regular basis now these items. Because, you know, we're creatures of habit. If you keep eating that stuff every day and you're eating more of it than the real stuff, it's not but a matter of time. You know, we used to say sooner or later. It looks like the sooner than the later, depending on how much we consume on a regular basis. This is serious stuff. When you look at the fact just in America alone, we have a healthcare bill that is I believe, $4.7 trillion for healthcare. But really, it's not healthcare, it's sick care. It's caring for the sick. It's funds that we spend to address sickness. But how much do we spend for health, to build our health? You see, either you're going to feed healthy living or unhealthy living, depending on how you live, what you consume, which was two major things of consideration: how you live, how you relate to other people and to nature, how you sleep, what you eat is going to determine the sooner or the later. So under the Franken foods or the fake foods, unreal foods, you're going to find, of course, I'd say the overarching title, Franken foods. But under that, under Franken foods, foods that almost make us like Frankenstein beings, you're going to find foods like adulterated food. You've heard of adultery? Someone committing an affair with somebody that's not their mate. Well, we've been, for the most part, committing an affair with unreal foods and reaping the babies of author, cancer, heart disease, headaches, stomach issues, joint issues, and a whole array of other issues. Why? Because we've been having a food affair with adulterated foods. Or what in the world are adulterated foods? Foods that are full of stuff that take away from its purity, laden with chemicals and preservatives and so forth and so on. So that category under Franken foods will be what I call the adulterated foods. Then there are also the eternal foods. They have their category as well. Now, all of them are coming from the mother or the father or the parents of Franken foods in my eyes. So you've got the eternal foods. What are they? Foods that last forever. Forever. Oh, yeah. Like burgers that people have found in their coat pocket. 8 months later, still intact. 3 years later, still intact. Literally over a decade later, I found this, and many others have found this to be true. Still intact. It's what I call an eternal food. Seems to last forever. Real foods are not like that. You know this to be true. Cut open an apple, a pear, a banana. After X amount of time, in short order, you're going to see it start turning. Items that don't turn and maintain their consistency, their stability, you better check it out to see whether it's real or fake, healthy or unhealthy. Well, I can go ahead and tell you it's not going to be healthy because real foods will spoil on you. Then we've got, of course, the GMOs, genetically engineered organisms. They're doing it to animals as well as plants, excuse me, as well as to humans too. Genetically modified organisms. They're telling us the food item has been genetically altered or modified for their purposes, to produce more of it in the name of feeding the population, as though God's way, God's system, how God developed the food item wasn't perfect. So we got to give God some help, as though God needs. Were you and I there when he created the universe? When he developed, created the food item? Were we right there counseling God? Well, God, let me give you some counsel. You need to add some coloring to that apple, as we got in the stores where man has added coloring to the apples. God, I think you need to add some coloring to the salmon fish, as though we were God's counselor. You know how God pulled Job in the collar, by the collar, saying, "Come here, boy. Can you counsel me?" I'm paraphrasing now. Can you counsel me, the all-knowing, all-wise, all-powerful creator? Do I need your counsel? Now, can you and I, can PhDs, can institutions counsel God on how to produce a crop? Absolutely not. We learned how to farm from the chief farmer. We learned how to do it from God. From God. Come on, we get real deep and spiritual when it comes down to spiritual things. Let me tell you something. Your health is spiritual. If you don't have it, how spiritual are you going to be if you don't exist? Oh, you'll be back into the spiritual domains because you won't have a fleshly body to operate on this physical planet. But you get my point. Now, I've got to throw some sarcasticness and some humor in there so you can digest it. Because some of this stuff, I get it. When somebody starts talking about taking you off of your shrimp, your lobster, your crab, your pigtails, your hog guts or intestinal tract, it's hard. It's an attack on the normality in the mind. It was on mine. When I found out that those pork chop sandwiches were literally worm sandwiches. I know it. Sometimes people don't want to hear the truth. You don't want to hear the truth on some of this. Why? Because you become addicted to stuff that God said, don't eat it. Well, I'm just going to pray over it. Lord, sanctify and purify it in the name of Jesus. That shrimp is still a shrimp and that pig is still a pig. I don't care how much hot sauce, black pepper, or any other condiments you put on it, it still remains in the category of what the Father, Creator, said, don't eat it. It's not good for consumption. Then there is the artificial foods. They tell us on the pack. They tell us on the Kool-Aid. It's artificial. We still go get it. I wanted to talk to you today about discerning the healthy from the unhealthy foods. This is important. You've got to have discernment. And how do I have discernment? Read the labels, gain information and knowledge about the ingredient. Go look up the ingredient. Don't just take my word. I refuse to just take people's words. Go look it up for yourself and you make the decision. At least know whether you're going to still eat it or not. At least know so you can say, well, I know it's bad. I'm going to eat some of it, but I'm not going to eat all of it. I'm going to be wise as much as I can to how much I eat, knowing that it's going to cause an effect because all foods have an effect. All foods talk to you, as I talked about on a prior podcast. All foods have their way of communicating or talking to you. At least know what you're eating because you see, in closing, the purpose of food was to provide and is to provide us with energy, nutrients for growth, repair, and functioning. See, when you give the body what it was designed to have, it's the chief doctor. Nobody can doctor on you like your body. God wired it that way. But it can only do the doctoring according to the food items and, of course, the rest and the exercise, and other factors. But really predominantly, I'd say, what we eat. All right? Because we're all going to eat for energy, for nutrients, to extract those minerals and those vitamins and those proteins and those fats and those complex carbohydrates out of the food items that we put in this vehicle so we can be healthy, feel good, look young, somewhat young even as we old, and make the Undertaker wait. This is what God intended. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for sharing this information. In advance, I want to thank you. Please, by all means, share. Because as you look around in your family, among your colleagues, you listen to the news, you look at social media, you can see the results in many, 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 many cases of people who did not exercise discernment in what they ate. Don't forget to subscribe to ellisonsconsulting.com and also my podcast channel, Next Up. Go to YouTube, type in NXT Next Up Podcast, and you can subscribe there as well. I really do love you guys enough to bring this information and tell you the truth so that you can be healthier, feel better, look young, and live long. God bless you. I'll see you next time around.